Hi, everybody. This is Jim Haviland. I'm going to share with you some slides that help kind of reinforce the disciplines for building your rock out after we've been in session. There's also a video about how to apply this inside of 90, but this is really more the concepts that I suggest to my clients for making rocks really powerful and more likely to get done and actually do the great communications tool they need to be to actually get all the work done that rocks are supposed to get done. So let's move over to the deck. So this is the after session rock refresher, and I will include a link to the deck. So in case you want to, as you get used to this, you can start sharing it with your other departments. Share it with anyone you'd like, because it's really about trying to get more done with everybody, and that's certainly on mission for me. So as a reminder, rocks are part of this discipline of predicting that we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to a place where we have everything we need to help as human beings and as teams, be able to get to where we want to go. So we've got some thought of vision. The vision typically is something that's beyond the horizon, beyond our planning window. We're trying to make the world a better place in this way. We're trying to get to this goal that's unachievable, way out past where we can actually start to plan, compelling, audacious goal, or big, hairy, depending on how you want to look at it, big, hairy, audacious goal, but something at the horizon. So like as far out as we want to plan, we want to set ourselves a goal. This is what we want to get by a date certain. We want to have these things be true. And then as we move closer and closer, we have more and more definition. Typically, depending on how far out that audacious goal is it 10 years? Is it 5 years? We might have a 3 or 2 year time horizon for some planning. Typically, we want to get to a 1 year plan. Almost everybody wants to have a 1 year plan. And this is where we really start to grade ourselves and how good we are at planning the time, energy, and resources we're trying to get to by the end of the year. And then the milestone to our year are the quarterly plans where we set our rocks. And these are all just stepwise approaches to that ultimate goal of achieving the vision and getting to our audacious goal. So we always are asking ourselves, what do we need to do this quarter to get to our 1 year plan? What do we need to do this year to get to our 3 or 2 year plan? What we need to do in that time horizon to get to the next one? Getting good at that is really part of being a great leader, having some sense of how we're going to have to sequence things and the time, energy, and resources going to take to get there. That's really what we're trying to talk about here. So we create rocks, and this notion of rocks, we remember important things have names, and we call them rocks for a very specific reason, because we want to be able to create a culture where, hey, I know what my standard work is, and that's maybe a level of complexity and hopefully agreement that we have with everybody in our organization. But we create rocks so we can communicate to everybody what we're focusing on. Hey, these are the priorities this quarter. These are things we're building or fixing to get to that long-term goal. That's really the point. Our daily work, sure, it helps out along the way. It gives us the fuel to be able to make things better. But if we're going to get to that far out goal, we have to have some focus, and we focus our attention around rocks. Hey, everybody, let's communicate what we're focusing on. And then we teach everybody to get better and better at planning. Once again, time, energy, and resources. What's it going to take to get there? Strategic planning, as it's been said, it's all about resource allocation. What are we going to take to get to the things we want to create in the world, to the outcomes we're trying to get to? And ultimately, we know we have to develop a discipline of accomplishment. It's part of our culture. We have to get to the place where we can say, hey, we're trying to get to this place, and we're going to make stepwise efforts towards it, week by week, month by month, quarter by quarter, so on and so forth. If we create those disciplines, that's super powerful. And by the way, that's how everyone starts to have faith that when we talk about, hey, this is where we're going, my friends, they can start to believe that we're actually going to get there because we end up doing the things we say we're going to do. So that's why we create rocks, all that stuff. So here's some design tips. So hopefully you've done a great job setting up rocks. If you're working with me, these things will be reestablished in every session you're having with me. But we start by saying, hey, let's recommit to how much time we're going to put into rocks. So if you're at the leadership team level, we say maybe about 20% of our time, and there's lots of caveats around that, but that would be 10 where we start this conversation. Sometimes in some roles, we're going to up that number. Hey, you're all about building and fixing things in the organization. You don't really have a standing job, or you have very little to do there. So you're going to do more time in rocks. And as we move down the organization into departments, typically we're having lower and lower numbers there. So so you get to the bottom, that bottom tier of your organization, and maybe you're trying to give someone some leadership skills. So you give them a rock, but it's going to be 5% of their time, 10% of their time, because they're really supposed to be getting things done. We also like to make our rocks smart. This is how we communicate to ourselves and everybody else that we really know where we're going. Specific, it has to be, hey, we have to be really clear with everybody around us where we're trying to get to, so we can all say, hey, we really do support you in this. Measurables are the great way to make sure that we've taken our expectations, turned into agreement. Yeah, let's have some numerical way of showing that we're actually getting to where we want to go. It's achievable. Let's make sure that you have access to the time, energy, and resources to get there. Do you have the power within yourself to get there, either your own capabilities or the capacity inside the organization? You are in charge of enough stuff to actually get this done. Is it realistic from a time perspective? Are we overburdening you, or is it too small of a goal? Let's be realistic about, can we actually get to this place, and then have a plan. If you're working with me, I'm always telling you which are the first rock to come off, and what's the place where we would say, okay, this isn't working, I have to change the scope of this thing. And then timely. Is it important that we work on this right now? Are there other things? So these are all great questions we answer for ourselves. And if you look at my video on the how to use 90, I actually put definitions of SMART inside the description of the rock. And so I can answer these questions, teaching myself, teaching the AI, and teaching anybody else that comes along what my thinking was. Milestones are not in every rock discipline, but we certainly support them in 90, and I support them because I want you to get better and better at being a project planner. The milestones every week, what's something I'm going to work on every week to get to this goal? And they could be things I have to achieve. There could be things I just have to make sure are true. But I'll give you some examples here in a minute, but creating milestones every week gives you something to accomplish, and making sure you're making progress every week and you're not doing the thing that everyone does, which is procrastinate. Everyone on your team should align on whatever goal we're coming up with. That's critically important, because you're going to ask for their support. You're going to have to say, hey, I got to catch up on my rock, or I really need this to make this happen. Can you help support me by doing this or that? Can you take this milestone for me? These are all things that happen if we think this is important. Everyone should get aligned to it so they can buy in and support it. We should all understand the goal. That's why we make it SMART. And we make the measurables because we want to turn our expectations about what done looks like into agreements the best we possibly can. Our disciplines are more powerful than just goals, so creating a discipline around getting there is the point. Even if we don't get to exactly where we planned, if we create a discipline and we're actually making progress, it sure is a super win. We want to be able to make sure we're preparing as we're moving along to what future stages or phases of this go. And I have a model for this. I'll show you what it looks like. But the idea here isn't to say, okay, is that too big or too small for us? But as long as you know what has to come next and you're taking notes on that, like, hey, is there going to be a follow-up rock? If I get done early, what does that look like? These are all important things. So here's an example of what phasing a rock looks like. If this wasn't part of your original plan, you certainly want to apply it as you're working on it. One of my clients had this structure to almost everything they worked on. And what we did is we came up with a discipline around, if this is the beginning of the process, you're going to do some research and development. There's going to be a gate at the end. That's what those little diamonds are. This is a gate. It means you're not going to get any more time, energy, and resources unless this gate is a yes. And so is this worthy of more effort? Should we go into the design phase, right? So, and you would typically have a more specific way of defining what does yes looks like. If these things are true, then we move on and we add more resources to it. And then we go into a design phase. And this is what this means. Take it from requirements to a beta, something that you can go with clients. So this is preparing the beta would be the design phase. And then, is the design viable? Is it repeatable? Does it satisfy requirements? And then we'll take it out and we'll try to start operationalizing. We'll take it out to clients. We're starting using with them, see what kind of feedback we get. And eventually we make this part of standard work. We've documented it. We got great feedback. We know we can repeat it. We can optimize it. So we take it to standard work. So this isn't going to be your phased model overall all the time. This is an example of a phased model. And so if you think about things like building a website or building a new building, there are going to be phases to that. And you might not get any of them done in 90 days, which is how we think about our rocks as quarterly objectives. So you want to break it down into a place where, hey, I'm going to get this much done within 90 days, and then I'll continue working as long as I reach the gate and can satisfy what I need, what I think is important in that gate. Okay, now let's go deeper into milestones. We have to, when we're planning our week, we got to plan our work and then work our plan. That's what we're going to be doing every quarter. So we get together as a team, we plan some rocks and then say, okay, Jim, you've got this rock. Now go ahead some milestones. And these are the things you're trying to get accomplished. You want to validate the scope, make sure it's attainable, right? So, hey, we think you have to be able to get a rocket to the moon by the end of 90 days. And you're going to look through it and you're going to start laying out milestones like, hey guys, I think that's unrealistic, but I could fly a kite by the end of the quarter. So by looking at it, looking at all the things you might have to do and how long those are going to be, I'm teaching myself to be better at predicting the time, energy, and resources it takes to get things done. And then I can communicate that back to the team so we can set expectations of what we're trying to go. I also want to be identifying risks. So what are the things that on the outside of our organization or even within the organization that hey, I need to get the resources from these other people. I got to check with them. Hey, I'm depending on this client or this supplier to do this thing. Make sure you're laid out those dependencies so that it's not a shock. It's like, hey, we got to this place. The client we're going to work with went out of business. We're not going to make any progress. So we're going to pick a new one and work with them. Okay, we got as far as we could get with this. It's not your fault. It's not a problem. Stop here, and we'll restart this next quarter or something like that. We want to make sure all our stakeholders know whether we're making progress or not. If we want everyone to support us in getting done what we need to get done on our rocks, then we want to make sure that we've given everyone the insight, the ability to see whether we're making that progress. So if we've planned out a weekly milestones for the 13 weeks of the quarter, and then I get 4 milestones behind, my friends and colleagues in my team can go, hey, Jim, I appreciate your optimism because you're going to catch up with this rock, but you've got 4 milestones back. Let's talk about this and make sure we have a plan that together, because we all thought it was important. Let's figure out the right plan for the rest of the quarter and who's all going to help you with this, because we have some decisions to make and it's not happening in the organic way that we'd like it to. And ultimately, we're always trying to find ways for our teammates to help, or if you have people reporting to you, it's a great way to build confidence in them as leaders and as part of your future of leadership, because you got to be a leader building leaders. It's a great way to get them engaged with the building and fixing of advancing the organization towards where we're trying to get to. Okay, how we set them? We've got some quantifiable steps towards completion. Those are all milestones. List all the people or stakeholders who need to contribute to the direction or completion of the rock. So everybody that you're going to need time, energy, and resources from, you should list those out. Getting agreement on those resources is part of getting your rock done. The more we put stuff in there, the more likely you are to get things done. Anything that's going to get in the way of getting your rocks done, those all should be listed as one of your milestones. And any outside approvals need to happen. All of those are things. And then you schedule them so that they come on a regular basis. So you're not like burdening yourself in one place or other. Or if you know that, hey, I've got this little short rock I'm going to do it right now, and then I'm going to start this one in 3 weeks and then lay it out. I mean, you can make those kinds of plans. That's completely fine, but be intentional about it. Now, one thing, sometimes we don't cover in the quarterly, but we try to. But if you're working a couple departments down, here's things to remember. There are company rocks, department rocks, and personal rocks, and they're different. I won't go into details here, but company rocks are the most important ones for the organization, and those are the ones we talk about at our State of the Company meeting. Department rocks are the same kind of importance, but at the department level. And then you have personal rocks, things that aren't either of those other two are really just personal rocks. And the key here is if your personal rocks getting done and your company or department rocks are getting done, you're not playing the game right. So you've got to make sure you're focusing on, as a team, getting the most important rocks done. And so it's not okay to have all 4 of your rocks done if the company rock didn't get done and you had some part in that. You got to make sure that you're willing to set aside your rocks to get the most important rocks done. And you also want to make sure that you do a good job of going through your rock, setting all your milestones, and then getting support from the team. Like everyone should agree that the rock makes sense, that we know what's going to like to support you here, that we've helped you try to find some things that might get in the way. And that's part of the journey. So it kind of looks like this. Leadership team sets their rocks, then everyone goes away and makes their rocks smart and sets all their milestones. And everyone approves, everyone in the leadership approves those rocks, and the company rocks get presented to the whole company as part of the State of the Company meeting. So, hey guys, this is how we thought about last quarter, these things that we got done. So here's the most important things we're getting done this quarter. And that gives us everyone input in all the departments to know what they need to focus on when they go into their department quarterly. So typically this sequence of 4 events happens about 7 to 14 days, and you can plan it because it's going to be the same every 90 days. So If you had just had your quarterly, you know about 90 days from now is when you're gonna have your next quarterly, whether you're at the leadership team or the department, and somewhere in between there, you wanna have a state of the company meeting, and make sure that you've got rocks to talk about. This is all part of a set of things we wanna refresh every quarter as part of every operating system. So all your measurables and KPIs, make sure that they all align with where we're going as an organization. That's why we kinda have our department quarterlies after our leadership team quarterlies, because if we're gonna focus on this thing and not that thing, then we may or may not change our KPIs to support that. And then that's a good time to also review the processes. Every process should be owned by somebody. Someone's gotta own it, make sure it's right, and it's a good time to do a little bit of a review and refresh. Hey, have we changed this process at all? If so, that's actually a great thing to take as a rock. Hey, I got to maybe if it's a small thing, if it's a task, I just got to update some numbers. That's great. If it's actually taking to take a little bit more, hey, we got a whole new piece of equipment in here. I got to redo this process with a new piece of equipment. That's probably a rock. It's going to take multiple steps, and you need to get people approved on that. And then in this deck, which you'll have access to, include the text that I put actually in my rocks and some milestone suggestions as well. There's also a great content here at help.90.io.rocks. To everybody, and good luck this quarter with your rocks.